There was a small door that led to attic space in my bedroom, 11 years old to 13, and it became habit that I would shut the door as I walked into my bedroom a couple times a week. I didn't think anything of it, just assumed my mom didn't close it all the way when she left it. After a while, I made the mistake of joking with her when she made a comment about me not picking up after myself. I said something like, every night I have to close the attic door behind you. How about you shut it all the way when you're done? She then informed me that she hasn't been in the attic in months. Asked my brother, nope. Asked my father, nope. So then I started to pay really close attention to it, making sure it was closed in the morning, checking it after school, checking blaster dinner, then head up to bed. After a couple months of wondering, studying, experimenting, I thought I'd see what happens if I just don't shut it. Opened the door before school and checked it after school, still open. Checked it after dinner, still open. Before bed, still open. Now I'm laying in bed, mind going crazy with the open door across the room. Decide to check it out, so I roll over and focus on the black space into the attic to see a face staring back at me. Bolt downstairs, wake parents, get ridiculed by brother, switch bedrooms brother, move into new house about 6 months later due to expanding household. New physics teacher and his wife bought our house. I could have forgotten all about that event and chalked it up to me having an overactive mind. But then my senior year I discovered how awesome our physics teacher was. Became my favorite class and by far my favorite teacher. End of senior year, my friend and I took our VHS camcorder around town, doing mostly silly things, but then took it to my old house to see what they've done with the place. We got a very fun tour. I got to tell stories about all the projects my dad did that were still part of the house. I could have forgotten all about that event and chalked it up to me having an overactive mind. But then my senior year, I discovered how awesome our physics teacher was. Became my favorite class and by far my favorite teacher. End of senior year, my friend and I took our VHS camcorder around town, doing mostly silly things, but then took it to my old house to see what they've done with the place. We got a very fun tour. I got to tell stories about all the projects my dad did that were still part of the house. Then the wife leads us upstairs to show us the sewing room. I ask, jokingly, "Notice anything strange in this room?" And her face goes blank. On camera, she asks what I mean and I try to shrug it off, but end up saying something about the attic door. She confirmed that every time she comes up to sew, the attic door is open. She then tells us that the second day of being in the house, their dog, German Shepherd, had gone into the room but would not go back downstairs. He started barking and could not be consoled, and then jumped through the window, landing on the tin roof over the porch and then running off. The dog did not come back until the next day and has not stepped foot into the hallway that leads upstairs since. I had the initial thought that I could show my parents and brother the story I had on film, but I decided to just let it be. Edit a few extra details to satisfy the curious. Attic is the space in this house that runs parallel, like a Cape Cod to the second floor, not above it. I was 11 and 12 when this was going on, so I did not immediately science it all out. When I told my family that I saw a face, it was just my brother that ridiculed me. My father definitely would have checked it out for actual humans, because one of the first comments he made was about a family that recently had a coin collection stolen from their house. This event itself was easy to shrug off, because I could chalk it up to a lot of other possibilities, like the ones mentioned below. It wasn't until 5 years later that it became freaky. The look on the wife's face before she told us about the dog was very telling, like something they decided to never put much thought into. Now my story added depth to their experience, and their story added depth to mine. This did not make me a believer in paranormal. I told the story as a collection of details, not as a confirmation of ghosts. What it did do was make me never be able to be a non-believer. Thanks for reading. Eat it too. I thought the Blaster Dinner comment was a Reddit reference that was over my head, like most of them, but just reread my story. Nice. Eat it 3 last details. The face was expressionless. I did not see a body, just what appeared to be a dimly lit face staring at me. The door was an actual door, just smaller, 2x4, with a knob that has to be turned in order to open the door. I do not have the VHS tape from 20-something years ago. I moved a lot after high school, and the tapes did not make it through all the moves. Happy Halloween, everyone. I've posted this before a long time ago, but it still remains by far the single creepiest thing that ever happened to me. So here goes. I was in Taiwan 1 year when I was younger, and had traveled to a busy night market. These are popular gatherings of food shop stalls that usually operate in the evening. Nearby I spotted a sign for a net cafe in a 5-6 story tall building. Thinking I'd fire off some quick emails, I walked in the dark, small entrance of the building. The building was older and hasn't been well maintained, but it's not out of the ordinary in Taiwan. The entrance just had a dark hallway that led to a small elevator. I pressed the elevator call button and entered. The elevator was uncharacteristically new compared to the building, but I didn't think much of it. Like some Chinese Taiwanese buildings, there wasn't a 4th floor. It's considered bad luck since 4 sounds like death. So it just read 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, which was usual. I looked for the floor the net cafe was at, 6th floor, and pressed the button. It lurched into action quietly and began the ascent. When it stopped, I figured it was my floor, so I instinctively began to step out. Right before stepping out, however, the sight outside the elevator stopped me. It was pitch dark. Only lit by the light in the elevator, it looked like it hasn't been occupied for decades, with some random pieces of furniture covered with white cloth or similar. It was a small building, so each floor was single occupancy, so I could see pretty much the entire floor from the elevator. Thinking I must have gotten the wrong floor, I checked the light. That indicates which floor you're on. Strangely, there was nothing, none of the indicators were on, but the floor button to the net cafe was still lit, so I know I haven't gotten there yet. All this happened within a couple of seconds. That's when I noticed a figure moving in the distance of the floor. It was not very visible, but I could make out what looks like a person dressed in some kind of gown, moving slowly towards the elevator where I was. I was thoroughly creeped out, so I started pressing the close door button. As soon as I pressed it, the elevator light flickered off, and I am in pitch dark. I am this close to pissing my pants, and it's actually kind of freaking me out thinking back to it. The lights flickered back on under a second, and the door closed. The elevator jolted back to life. A few moments later it opened again to the net cafe. I am beyond relieved at this point. I walked out immediately and sat down at a computer. After gathering my wits a bit, I walked over to the cashier's desk and told them what I saw. The girl working there listened, and her face turned a bit ashen, so I asked her if she heard of similar. She told me that she's never experienced it, but some co-workers and occasional customers have brought it up, basically. The building has 6 floors, and the 4th floor had a history. Apparently the floor used to be a hair salon of sorts, until one of the employees killed herself there for some reason. She slit her wrists over the hair wash station and died. The store continued operations despite stories of weird appearances. When customers got their hair rinsed, the water would look a little red, like the customer was bleeding. Little things like that. And a couple people reported seeing someone's figure walking away in the mirror, but wouldn't see anyone when they turned to check. Naturally, the business closed down a few months later. The building owner tried to rent the place out, but never had any luck. Most businesses are quite superstitious, and no one wanted to rent the 4th floor after someone had died in it, even at a very cheap price. Finally, after dropping the price to nearly nothing, a stationery supplies store wanted to rent. During the renovations of the floor, however, several accidents would happen. Tools would end up in strange places, A mirror from the previous business shattered when no one was near it. And finally, a worker had his hand jammed between the elevator doors when it closed on him unexpectedly. The workers refused to continue working, and finally, the business left, and the building owner finally gave up and shut down the floor. He then had the elevator company come in to replace the panel so that the elevator could not go to the 4th floor. Let me repeat that the elevator was programmed to never go to the 4th floor. It doesn't even have a button. But for some reason, sometimes when people take the elevator, it would go to the 4th floor and the doors would open, and some, like myself, would see a figure walking around in the dark. I once worked as a live-in staff member in a college dormitory. During the summer, we housed the few summer school students who remained on campus, near 30. It may be significant to point out these students tended towards the highly academically motivated, oftentimes high-stress students, if quiet. One warm day in late June, my office received a call from a concerned sibling that she and her family was unable to reach her brother, who lived by himself in a room on the summer school floor. This wasn't unusual, as our office frequently dealt with students avoiding their kith and kin due to frayed nerves or general social awkwardness. Our normal protocol to check on a student is to try to reach them by our emergency contact information. Failing that, go check their room to verify they're living in the building and perhaps available then and there, then have them call their family to verify we followed up on the original request. Also, we are to only enter a room with another staff member present to ensure personal safety of staff and students. I failed to reach this student on his room and mobile phone and was working short-staffed, so since I was on my own, I decided to pop up to his room and check on him. I arrived on his floor around 2 in the afternoon, and the floor seemed deserted as I had expected. I found his room number and immediately noticed the sound of a movie playing on a TV or computer from behind the door. I knocked 3 times and announced that I was a staff member checking on his health and safety. No answer. I didn't think this was that remarkable. College students are notorious for leaving electronics running while not in the room. I checked the floor showers and bathrooms and found them deserted. I returned to his door and knocked 3 more times, waiting about 20 seconds between each knock. No answer. This is when my instincts started to buzz. I worked in residence halls a number of years as a professional, and something about all the pieces of this puzzle went adding up. Family concerned about his health and safety, electronics running, someone must have started them recently, within the time frame of a movie run time. Summer school students and their idiosyncratic behavior, something wasn't right. I was by myself, so I probably let myself get more worked up than if I was with someone else. A deserted dorm floor, even at 2 in the afternoon, oftentimes evokes Kubrickian memories of the Overlook Hotel. I decided that for some sense of closure or sanity, I needed the immediate resolution of keying into this student's room, even though I was by myself and not technically supposed to do so. I knocked on the door 1 more time for good measure, again announced myself as the hall director. I keyed into the room and my spider sense went off even stronger. The room appeared relatively vacant. The student appeared to be living out of a suitcase, which is unusual for someone staying no less than 8 weeks for a summer school session. The bedding was tousled like someone had been sleeping in it, and all the lights in the room were on. And as I had suspected, there was an open laptop on a desk running on battery power, playing The Matrix, but no student. I began to start rationalizing to keep from feeling unsettled. Surely this student and I had crossed paths on my way to his room. I'd never met him before, so I wouldn't recognize him otherwise. And perhaps he was just down in the lobby picking up delivery food for a late lunch. Sure, that's it. Then I turned to leave, planning on trying to reach the student later in the afternoon or that night. As I turned to leave, I noticed another odd piece of evidence. The accordion closet doors, which are removed in most rooms due to disuse, particularly single rooms like his, were still in this room. and they were closed. Odd. I couldn't remember the last time I actually saw someone use those cranky, dysfunctional doors. Then my intuition spiked higher than ever. Shit. I realized I was alone in a room with a potentially suicidal student who may in fact have completed just that. And I am about to be that guy who discovers the body and then has a shitstorm of paperwork and undesirable tasks. Not the least of which would be calling the family back to break the news. I felt like I was talking to myself when my voice cracked as I spoke to the closed doors and announced my name and title, and that I would be opening those Akoyan doors in 3 seconds. I fumbled with the latch on the doors and finally managed to get them disengaged, and as I slid the doors apart, I was unprepared. I don't know what I really expected. Gunshot wound. I'll tell you what I didn't expect: a 7 dark-skinned Indian man staring at me embarrassingly, as though I had found his secret hangout. We stared at each other for a good 15 seconds without blinking, breathing, or speaking. I finally realized what was going on, and my natural emotion was disbelief. All I could think to say was, "Are you in here hiding from me?" My heart was still racing. I turned to leave, and before I shut his door, I turned back to him and said, "Call your sister, she's worried about you." I went on my first vacation without any adult supervision and minors under my watch at 19. We went to St. Thomas for a week and stayed at a really nice Marriott on the island. It was me, my best friend Devon Sivan, and her little sister and her little sister's best friend, both 16. Everything was going wonderfully. The drinks flowed, we bronzed our ebony skin on the local beaches, and we club bar hopped as we expected to. On our second to last night of parent-free paradise, we decided to take a taxi to the other side of the island to meet up with an American bartender waiter. This is where the night began to go the way of shit. A nice taxi driver who had taken us to most of our destinations, and who had become like a grandpa figure to us over the course of our vacation, picked us up. So once he drove away, we realized we were at the wrong spot. So we, already being pretty buzzed, walked away and began to do a recon for this dude walking from club to club, steadily getting more and more wasted. We ended up at this local bar filled with older, sketchy, Rasta-type dudes, but by this point we had been looking for like 3 hours and decided to just enjoy the music and dance the night away. I excused myself from our dance circle to use the bathroom, but after about 10 steps something told me to look back at my friends. There standing over my friends was a huge Rasta sprinkling some type of powder over the unsuspecting teens. I quickly looked down on myself, and there was this dust all over me too. I was officially freaked out, so I run over to them and tell them what's been going on. We're all freaked out now. So we call our grandpa taxi driver, and his wife picks up and tells me that he fell ill unexpectedly and can't come pick us up. We have no way to get back to the hotel, so the younger girls begin to get paranoid and begin ranting about voodoos. I'm tired, drunk, and now officially creeped out, but need to keep my cool in front of the girls. So I call the hotel and see if they can send a shuttle. It's like 3 a.m., but they say they can't. Wouldn't you know that while I'm talking on the phone with the Marriott, Rasta man has made his way over and starts in on us, creepy Rasta dude. "You girls staying at the Marriott, I can take you there. No problem, I'm actually a taxi driver." Creepy Rasta dude. "Why you got to treat me this way? You goddamn tourist always fucking with our country. You just rape our land for a week and leave us behind." Me. "Hey man, calm down, no offense meant, we're good, but really thanks for the offer." Creepy Rasta dude, who the fuck was talking to you? At this point we've moved outside and are trying to flag any kind of taxi down. A crowd has gathered, and they are all pro creepy Rasta dude. We are heavily outnumbered both by locals and by men, and now the younger girls are crying. And suddenly, like out of a dream, a taxi driver pulls up and tells us to get in, so we do so without really looking at the car. He's happy and talkative for the first minute of the car ride, and then he completely shuts down, stops talking, and begins to blast some reggae music to the point where we can't hear each other speak in the back. We get within half a mile of the familiar path to the hotel, and he stops the car. For no reason. There isn't a light. He hasn't run out of gas. We certainly haven't asked him to pull over. He just stops the car and turns off the music and sits there like he's trying to debunk Einstein's theory of relativity. And then he turns his left blinker on. His left blinker that would lead us to the shanty side of St. Thomas. The left blinker that would go away from our hotel. My heart drops to my stomach, and the worst case of pins and needles kicks in. I turn to the door that I'm sitting next to and try to open the door, but they are locked. I shit you not, I've never been more scared in my entire life, and I've had like 5 movie-style scary moments. I was scared not really for myself, but for my friends, and for their families, and especially for my parents who had already lost a child. So I pull it together and try to make my voice as strong as possible and squeak out. This is not our turn. I think you're confused. And for what felt like an eternity, but was probably like 30 seconds, he was quiet and then turned his blinker off, nodded, and began to drive us to our hotel. When we got out, the security guy, who we had also made friends with, scolded us when we got out about getting into random cars. Turns out there wasn't even a taxi sign on the car. He had just yelled taxi, and we had gotten in due to how distracted we were from the crowd. To this day, I wonder what would happen if I hadn't said anything about the turn.